one where, hey, awesome. Let's see, why is it a different height today? And I'm also going to start this other video. Good morning or afternoon, probably, everyone. I think we do that every time. I'm always like, good morning. And then I'm always like, it's probably not the morning for most people. I always forget my iPad login video. Oh, we lost that. All right, so we'll give people a couple minutes maybe to jump on, and I'll start that when I start this one. Oh, it has a timer up there. Never mind, we're good to go. Yeah, today we are talking about some things that limit or that get in the way, that limit our sex lives, or that have limited our sex lives in the past, and how that shows up, and maybe why that shows up, and yeah, and then if we hopefully have some time at the end, good morning, evening, afternoon, evening, morning, where everything for everybody. Hi, thanks for joining us. So I was just saying, today we're just going to be talking a little bit about things that we've noticed, that really limit our sex lives or have gotten in the way. Well, ladies, hello there. Hi. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it. We're going to try to keep this one brief. We've noticed that our lives have been getting away from us a little bit because it's just so easy to go back and forth and have the conversation snowball. So, sorry, we're just trying to get, there we go. Awesome. So, things that limit our sex lives. So we're going to talk more conceptually. The one big thing for me. So there's, how do I want to even say it? Yeah, I'll just say it. Like, the one main thing that I find really limits the way that I am able to show up sexually with a partner, and even sometimes by myself, is the sexual script of what and who I am supposed to be as a cisgendered, heterosexual, monogamous, white woman. So all of the things that society says, this is what sex looks like for you, and this is what your role is when you're in the bedroom and when you're with a partner, and these are the noises that you make, and this is the way that you look, and these are the things that you do. And for the longest time, I was so, and still it sneaks in. It's really, I find it's so limiting, and it keeps me in this box a lot of the time. And it's like a fight sometimes, or a huge challenge to really push myself to remember I don't have to work within those limitations. So for me, growing up, I was really obsessed with sex from a young age, actually. I think my mom was a little bit worried about me. But she was like, and so, but I loved like researching it and reading about it and looking at pictures and everything. And I just remember being like, I saw it as this amazing tool, or even like a weapon for me as a woman, a weapon that I could use to get what I wanted, or to be desirable, to be magnetic and attractive. And I do believe that sex does help you to be magnetic and attractive and all of those things. But I think I saw it more, again, like as a weapon, or as this manipulative tool that I would be able to use to my advantage as a woman. And so I wanted to master it. I wanted to be like, great, so how do I do this right? How do I do this the way that I'm supposed to, so that I can get all of the benefit out of this that I can in my role? And so I followed that script like to a T. And I was like, look this way, dress this way, say these things. Where, I remember I went through a phase where I wore hoop earrings all the time. It was around like
I went through a phase where I wore hoop earrings.
I associated it with like the epitome of sexy. This was in high school. I was in high school in like the early 2000s. And I remember my older sister being like, you're a slut. You're wearing hoop earrings, but part of me was like, yeah, I am. And I'm doing it on purpose. So it was so constructed, and it was so choreographed that it was a complete cognitive process. And sex for me now, the older I get and the more that I do it, and the more I realize it's an art. It's not a specific science, and it's something that it's fully an embodied experience. To really get the most, or to open and have those really expanded, amazing, multi-orgasmic like even sexually, like spiritual experiences, it's about becoming more and more embodied and dropping out of your head and coming right down and feeling and going about it in more of an intuitive way, and slowing it down a lot, which was a huge thing in I think everybody's sexual script, for men and women. It's well, actually not for men, uh, but for heterosexual, like cisgendered women, it's like if you get aroused really quickly, if you come really quickly, those are all check, 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 check. That's what you want to have working for you, because then you're working on the male clock. Whereas men, I think there's even more pressure to be like, slow down, don't be too fast, don't do that, to try to work on the archetypal female clock, you know? And so I really pushed myself to do that. And in doing so, sex for me for years and years was a heady experience where all I was doing was thinking and performing and not actually enjoying and finding pleasure and finding connection with my partners and finding it was like, I want to do it right, and I want to get it done. Like, it was so crazy limiting, because I thought that there was a right way to do sex, and I am a bit of a perfectionist and an overachiever, and so I'm always like, I'm gonna do it right. And in doing so, I think that was actually the most limiting. Not that I did it right, I don't think there is a right way, but in trying so hard to do it right, I think I boxed myself in and I limited myself in so many ways. And it was just that I can see now, and I still see how that shows up for me in the bedroom, even as I'm aware of it, because it's just so ingrained, it's so scripted, it's so habitual to be like, what's my role? Perform it, do it correctly, you know? Yeah. What are you thinking? You're being so quiet.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with like certain bits of that as well. And I think just with my own experience with limiting my own sex life, I think it's not only it's sort of the idea of who you feel like you should be in bed. So what do you feel like your partner wants from you, instead of sort of doing what you want and what feels really good for your body as well. So it's always, like Kendra was saying, it's almost like a show for the other person, trying to please the other person, instead of being like, hey, this is an experience for me too. Like, I got to sit back and I got to enjoy this as well. And I'm allowed to ask for things that I want, because sex should be 100% mutual between two partners, in my opinion. So I think what has limited my sex life in the past is sort of following like a sexual routine, which I think is kind of related to what Kendra was saying, but it's kind of going to what feels safe. And especially if you've had the same sexual partner, or you're in a relationship and you have sex with the same person on a regular basis, is paying attention to what is your sexual routine. So when you engage in sex, is it the same thing? Do you do the same types of foreplay? Do you have sex in the same positions? Like, what is your sexual routine? Because I bet you do have one without really being aware of it. Most of us do. And I think me having my sexual routine with past partners, I definitely had one, and I wasn't really aware of it. That's just what sex was, and I didn't really want to change it, because I was scared to ask to try new things, because I was embarrassed and I was shy, and I thought that this is what my partner wanted and this is what felt best for them. So I was more so trying to please them and putting their needs before my own. And it wasn't until my most recent relationship where I was comfortable enough to actually like ask for new things and try things and sort of break out of that routine, which took a while, because we did have a sexual routine for a while. And then breaking out of that, I didn't realize how limiting I was to my own sex life by staying in like coloring between the lines and doing the same thing over and over. So I think definitely noticing and being aware of your sexual routine. How might it be limiting your sex life and having new experiences and trying new things with your partner? And this can also enhance their sex life as well without even really realizing it. And they might have like a whole new sexual experience that they didn't even know possible. And it creates a whole new level of connection with you and your sexual partner, especially if there's someone you've been sleeping with for a long time. I mean, I've never been married and I've never had the same sexual partner for 30 years. So I can only imagine if you have been in a relationship for like 15 20, 30 years and even having sex with the same person for a very long time, you know, what are your go-tos and what do you do, and would it be uncomfortable to try something outside of that sort of like straight highway of your sex life? So
yeah, and I was going to just say that straight highway, like as you were talking, I was just thinking, I think of that as like the orgasm formula. When you say you're like, these steps are what we do, usually it's like these steps are what we do to come, to finish, to achieve orgasm. So it's like the routine is really about the quickest route to orgasm, which again, you can miss out on so much of what else sex and connection and intimacy has to offer when you're doing the orgasm formula. It works, and that's why we do it. And not to say anything against routine, you know, I mean, sometimes it's nice to know what the orgasm formula is or how we get to those places quickly if we're limited for time.
If you want to have a quickie, but if you're like wanting like a sexual experience and stuff, it's nice to try and break away from the routine. And I keep saying the routine, and I keep thinking of the episode of Friends, you know, where they do the routine.
Oh, like Monica and Ross. Different kind of routine.
Yeah, different kind of routine, but there's like quickie sex, like, oh, we don't have very much time, this is what works for us, and you know,
yeah,
this will be fun and it'll feel really great. But then there's also like, hey, we don't have a time limit here, let's try something a little bit different.
Yeah, and if you think about that, like in the spirit of eat, squat, come, it's the same in each of those categories. I'd say that generally speaking, routine is comfortable, routine is safe, and so we like that, and we'll keep coming back to it as humans. And we'll often eat the same things every day, and we'll often do the same exercise when we exercise, and like the same activity, and then we have the sexual routine. And not that there's anything wrong with that. And with each of those things, you're going to plateau. Eventually, if you're eating the same thing every day, you'll start to lack in some other nutrients if you're not getting a really balanced diet. And so there will be repercussions to that. Whereas when you diversify your diet, you become more healthy and radiant and glowing because you're getting such a variety of nutrients. Same with exercise. If you vary the type of exercise, or you'll start to see more gains, because if you do the same thing over and over, eventually you'll plateau. And so it's about challenging your body to do different things in order to maximize whether it's strength gains or weight loss or whatever your fitness goals are. Usually you achieve them much more quickly or efficiently when you're varying what you do. Same with sex. If what you're looking for is more pleasure, more orgasm, more expansion, more different types of orgasms, blended orgasms, energy orgasms, and just different intimate experiences, you're not going to get that if you're following the same routine. So again, it's about diversifying so you don't plateau, and you can open up your pleasure potential by trying different and new things. And that's the same with diet, and that's the same with exercise. With all three of our pillars, I think it's like diversity.
Mm-hmm. And sexual diversity,
working outside of your comfort zone, and your routine is key. Yeah.
So I think the things that have limited our sex lives in the past are like kind of closely related. Mm-hmm. A sexual script and routine, I think, kind of go hand in hand with one another. But I don't know. So should we do a little recap?
Well, we had some. Do you want to go through and see what there was some questions, or are we good for this one? We're filming on two different platforms right now, but that's why we're looking at it. Notice we're looking at two different cameras. But anyways, we are going to finish up our IGTV just because there's more of a time limit on that. If you do want to watch more or hear us answer questions, hop over to our YouTube channel, Eat Squat Come, and we'll answer some questions there. Or you can always private message us, or you can email us at eatsquatcome@gmail.com. Also, stay tuned. We're launching our website soon. All right. Cheers. So let's go through some of our YouTube stuff. That goes for you guys as well, though. You can always email us and private message us on Instagram and everything like that. But yeah, I guess we're looking at if there's things that you have found limit your sex life. Go ahead.
The number one thing limiting is themselves. True and awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, I don't.
And that's what it is. It's like I wasn't even... For me, it was never that a partner said, you need to do this, or you need to behave like this, or why aren't you showing up the way that I want you to? It was me believing that I needed to, or that they expected me to. Perhaps they did expect me to, but it was me. It was me in my own head. It was me trying to fulfill what I believed were other people's expectations of me.
What would be a good first step to change the script if you feel like you need to?
Good question.
I think maybe trying to be aware of what your script is.
Mhm.
So if you think that you may have a script, now that you kind of have this seed planted in your brain, next time you do have a sexual experience, try and pay attention to what it might be. Maybe you can write it down, and if you're comfortable with your partner, you can talk to them about it as well.
Communication is huge there. Awareness is always the first step, and it sounds like you do have some awareness around that. You have a sexual script. I think everybody does. Where it is, sometimes it can help to dig into why it is. Where did that come from? So looking at the sexual script and maybe where it came from a bit, that can sometimes help us come to terms with it and recognize that it's not what we want, but kind of what was nurtured into us. And then you can, I would invite you to fantasize about what your ideal sexual self would look like. What would it look like if you showed up with a different script? Write your fairy tale sexual script, and then it's splitting the difference. It's looking at, where am I now? Where do I really want to be? And then understanding that this definitely won't happen overnight just because you want it. It'll take a lot of practice and commitment to get there. But just it's about breaking it down into smaller steps. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? What is a reasonable first step? Even if that is just you catching yourself each time you're following the script. And then once you catch yourself enough, be like, okay, so now I noticed that I've done it the last this many times. So now, am I willing to say something? Am I willing to be like, hey, I've noticed this. Can we do something different, whether it's in the moment or before sex? Sometimes it's just sharing that with your partner. But it's about being really gentle with yourself, really compassionate with yourself, and knowing that you can have that ideal sexual script, but it's like baby steps. Awareness, smaller actions, bigger actions, and so on and so forth, if that makes sense. Yeah. Communication is key. We had that one. Absolutely. Communication is my favorite thing. Sorry, my fan is in the way. Hypergamy, female hypergamy. I'm not 100% sure what that means. If I had to guess what that means based on hyper and gammy, I mean, I suppose that would just be like accentuating everything that is female and being sort of almost like that doll. Like, it's funny when I look at Instagram now and when I look at like even just media and magazines, I'm like, everybody's starting to have the same face. Like, there's so much, like, it's like the filters and the way that makeup is done now and all the contouring, like there's so much to make people look a certain way that it's like, I think everybody's starting to look like the same. And it's that, like, that hyper idealized idea of what femininity is, of what being a woman is, a heterosexual woman, and this is what it needs to look like and everything. And so that gets drilled into us over and over and over again through media, absolutely. And so then, and it becomes much more difficult to ignore that type of script when it's surrounding you everywhere. And it's definitely, and I think there's hyper masculine and there's hyper feminine. If I've interpreted what hypergamy is correctly, that's what I would assume it is. But yeah,
I'm not sure.
Being like that hypersexualized feminine vision or idea. But yeah. Anyways, I think that's, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, with what you were saying, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like porn. And maybe because like a lot of the things that we learn about sex and maybe about like females is like from some of our first sexual experiences, maybe from porn.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of related or not, but that's what popped into my head when you were kind of saying that.
Yeah. But with the, porn has, I'll save that for another live. It's too much to get into. But very hyper. It's the fake breasts, the labiaplasty, the makeup, the hair extensions, the lip injections, the everything, and then the very vocalized orgasms and the everything. It's all very, very literally scripted.
Yeah, that's not a real sexual script.
But
like that is
it's a literal pornographic script. Yeah. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention we are releasing a video today at 12:30 our time, so that's in about an hour or so, I suppose, depending on what time we're at right now. But it is on emotional blockers. So other emotional blockers, big emotional blockers that stand in between you and your ideal sex life, or that can often get in the way. Because one thing that I notice with clients is they'll say, I want to have sex and I have this image of what my ideal sex life is in my head, but I'm not doing it because I don't want to have sex. A big piece of me doesn't want to have sex, you know? So it can be really confusing when you're like, I love the idea of sex and this sex life, but when it actually comes down to the behavior, I don't want to do it. I don't show up. And so I talk about in this video the big 4 emotional blockers that stand in the way and that tend to pop up and get between you and the ideal. So yeah, did you see anything else on there? Or?
I think we got most of the questions.
Great.
So thanks so much for watching, guys.
Yeah.
If you have any more questions, we try our best to keep up with the comments on our YouTube, and we definitely check the most recent things that we post. So if you're just recently watching this or you're watching it right now and you have any lingering questions, please just drop them down below. We will check them later on today and tomorrow, and we'll do our best to answer them. And if it's a really personal question, we do our best to answer our emails as well. So you can always email us at eatsquatcome@gmail.com. If it's something that you're not comfortable sharing in the comment section below, we'll do our best to try and help you with that.
Absolutely.
Anyways, eat, squat, and come today.
Yeah, do it. Or don't do it if you think that you have to. Eat though. Eat is probably a good one. Please eat. All right. Thanks so much. We appreciate you guys showing up, and we'll see you again soon. Another live in 2 weeks.